Okay, I wanted to do this video. I'm gonna do another video, I realized too. That's probably gonna be the last video for today. Or maybe I have to do another video in pertaining to something else, but yeah. Anyway, I wanted to talk about this. It's so weird. People say biracial and triracial. And they don't pay attention to what black Americans are. I was watching a video. Black Skin Amazing was talking to talking about one of the people over there. I think with multiracial movement or whatever, and saying that biracials were included in the black race. What I don't get is this. Do you understand what the term biracial and triracial mean? That's why I have the definitions up here. It means that basically the person is multiple races. So, okay, multiracial is having multiple races in you. Triracial is having 3 races in you, and biracial is having 2 races in you. If you look at the definitions, it never says anything about a percentage. Now, if it did say something about percentage on 50-50, no one would be biracial. So it never makes much sense why people say that it's specifically to biracial people to me. Because if you look at all the people I'm posting, they have more than 2 races in them, except the First Lady. She literally had 2 races in her. And they would all be considered black people. So it never makes any sense to me why we say biracial to mean someone with 2 different races of parents, when biracial, if you look at it by race, that's 2 races. Most black people have at least 2 races in them. Some black people only have 2. I believe like Chris Rock only has 2 different races in him. Don Cheadle, I believe, has 2 races in him. But many other black people have 3 races in them. They have black, white, and Native American. And then there's many black Americans who have black, white, Native American, and Asian. I guess they would be considered multiracial, excuse me. So I don't get why people automatically try and say biracial is a different term. It doesn't make much sense to me. Of course, it's not a different term from black people because black people have always included that definition in our identity, at least biracial. Most black Americans aren't just 2 races, so it's just weird to me. And, people will always try and go by the percentages and stuff and say, oh, you're too high of a percentage, then you can't count the other thing that you are. If anyone was walking around, I'm sorry, notification, but anyway, if anyone was walking around with 80% of their DNA and they weren't walking around with all the DNA they had, 100%, they wouldn't be living. If this guy was only 81% of himself, he wouldn't be alive. So it never makes much sense why people say, it's a percentage thing, when we very well see that throughout the phenotypes, biracials can look very dark and they can look very light. They can look like any race in between when they're 50-50. So people who have a higher percentage of European can look like anything. And anyone with a higher percentage of African can look like anything. So I never really understand that. To me, in America, the black race is the mixed race because we don't have any monoracial black people. I've said this before. We don't really have any monoracial black people. And even people who have high percentages of African ancestry, some people do have high percentages, like above 90% and stuff like that. And, in those cases, even they have multi-generational situations, which would lead them to any phenotype as well. So I don't really get why people act like there's a difference anytime anyone makes a difference, it always seems they have to leave out some truth. Either sometimes people, will talk about the phenotype and then they have to leave out the truth of the fact that there are plenty of black people who are over whatever percentage they want to designate as biracial, and they look more Eurocentric than biracials do. So it's really annoying to me, like, why people always act this way and try and act like black people, are different from biracials. They use percentages that are different. That doesn't even count because if you look at black Americans' DNA through the chromosomes, they're different percentages through each chromosome. So to me, it just never made any sense why people try to make these differentiations. And to me, it's just like you're trying to do it because you don't want to be black because you don't feel comfortable with being black, or you have some connotations with being black. Usually, you'll see the same people who act this way will have an issue with black people, you know, and, they'll have an issue many of the time with black people of their own gender. And that lets you know something. They don't like, for example, dark skinned black women. Because of that, they want to distance themselves as much as they can from dark skinned black women, because if they share the same race, they understand they're the same thing as a dark skinned black woman. And because they have that ingrown hate, it will go against them as well. So in their minds, they have to tell themselves they're not black people, you know. So that's just my perspective on that. I can't see a distinction between the two. I just can't, especially phenotypically. And, when we go about the world, if we're going to make a differentiation and say Barack Obama is not black looking, for example, then a lot of us aren't going to be black looking, you know? And, I, it's that's a different country. Some countries do see certain people as not black that are black here, but in America, we're not there. We're not at that point, and we're not in that mindset. And I like it that way because it would be weird to go off of a phenotype like that, because we'd have Africans who would be being called mixed, because there are plenty of Africans that look less black than biracials. And, that goes into the whole thing of tribal differences. Phenotypes being different between different tribes also contributes to this. And the whole thing with black Americans is we're not the same people. So many of us look racially very different from each other. You know what I mean? So you might have a black American who might look at another black American and think they look different from them, you know, and think that they must be something else because they're different. But the real thing is, they just come from different people. But this is just a consequence of, slavery in our past and not really being able to know who we truly are. But yeah, that's all I have to say here. It's just like you can't really make a distinction. The definition of biracial, triracial, they say three races, two races. They don't say a percentage. They just say three races within a person, two races within a person, more than three races within a person. Black Americans have more than two races in them, usually, at least, or many will have two races at the very minimum. I've never seen anyone who only has one race, black, in them and is an ADOS Black American. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching and bye.